The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Good morning, class, and welcome back to the #1 Contender podcast, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things movie trivia Schmoedown. I am your host, Jarod, the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs. Travis may or may not be joining us this week. He was feeling a little under the weather, so he might pop on halfway through the episode. He may not, but fret not. I am not by my lonesome. We are joined by the Schmoedown Rundown's very own Frank Janisch. Hello there, my friend.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Very honored to be joined by the OG of after show hosts.
Oh man, I guess. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's very exciting to have you on, and for once, the show might actually have some qualified opinions.
Oh, I'm not running that, but I'll try my best.
Before we jump into the week's matches, Frank, I can't get the numbers straight with the faction scaling. I don't want to say controversy, but conversation that's going on. So would you be so kind as to run everybody through what the sitch is with the faction scaling for next season?
Yeah, well, basically, potentially. I think the idea that's being floated out there is reducing the roster sizes for these factions from what we have is 12 down to 10 or 8 or whatever the case may be. Nothing set in stone. It was a poll that was put out on Facebook and on Christian's Twitter, I think it was as well. So trying to gauge what the community thought, what are their opinions on that? And what I would say about trimming down those faction roster spots, I think it does need to happen. I think the reason it expanded in the first place, though, coming into this season from 10 to 12, was that everything was going to be digital mostly, like 90%. I think they estimated probably, and hopeful for in studio stuff, but probably planned on doing all digital this year. Is that you could have a lot more people involved due to the nature of it being digital. So it didn't matter if you lived here in the U.S. or in Australia, like Jacob Blunden and Taylor Robinson do. So I think you were able to expand it and open it up to much wider plethora of people out there. And at the same time, I think it allows the league to find other players who potentially could become the next, stars of tomorrow when you open up the roster. And this is before they launched FCL. So I think the thought was, or potentially is that, we'll increase it to 12. We'll see who comes out of that. And then going into next season, when we get back into studio matches, normally in the past, a lot of these players have been LA in the LA area. I mean, a few have been outside, like Paul Yama, Chance Ellison, for example.
Yeah.
Right? They would fly in and stuff like that. But a lot of them have been close to the LA, able to do studio matches, basically. And so when you have people across the country, all over the country, it can make it a little bit difficult because now you're banking on, these players to take time out of their own schedules to fly across the country or what have you to show up for a match. And back in the day, we used to do matches on the weekend, like on a Saturday. They did back in Collider. We used to do Fridays, sometimes during the middle of the week. But recently, before the pandemic, everything was kind of doing batch recordings on a Saturday, on the weekends. But now with teaming with Skybound and all that, I think a lot of the matches perhaps will be taped during the week, during a normal weekday, because it is our job. And so if players let's say, I'm not gonna give out an example because I really can't speak for any person out there. So I'll just say player A, if they end up in a normal contender match and it has to be held on a Thursday and they can't get off of work or they can't fly out, they don't have the funds, let's say, now we're kind of in a bind. So I think that's part of the reason, because there will be digital matches next year. I don't think just not as much, but so it's going to be, I think, interesting to see how the league ultimately decides what to do with the amount of roster spots. Plus, also, I think it's a lot for managers to handle. 12 people is a lot, and they're like the only one doing it. Some people have kind of an assistant, some don't. A player on the roster kind of can act like an assistant, I think, but it's interesting how managers would kind of navigate 12 players and then coming down to 8 or whatever the number, back down to 10 maybe. So it'll be interesting to see, at the end of the year, what the ultimate decision is and how that will affect next season and how many matches players get to play and all of that, because we are doing a lot more matches this year, and you could say that's in response to the increased roster size, but I think we probably would still do the same volume of matches next year, but with fewer players in the league, and that can be more opportunities and allow other players to showcase more of their talents aside from just the one match or maybe 2 matches they get, whereas maybe they get a little bit more of a leash, which could be interesting and help build more of these players. So I think there's a lot that I think goes into trimming down the number. I think there's many reasons why it could be beneficial, but I think some players, they'll be kind of dismayed by that because they go, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for it, but there's always opportunity there, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting going into next season.
I think this is the part where I'm supposed to do the Brad Gilmore. We don't want you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That got a big laugh out of me when I was listening to the rundown. But in your opinion, what do you think the gold number would be? Because there's several different increments. It was like, this is where I keep crossing the streams. It was 8 factions, 10 players was one of them, right? Am I correct, or am I completely wrong?
I think so. Yeah. I was trying to think. What do you?
Because I like anything that adds a faction. I like anything that will add a new faction to the mix, because then you get the mystery of who becomes a manager in the next season. Because me personally, back with the swag surrection plot line, I went ape shit when I saw Jay Washington. And considering the fact that I remember hearing Winston talking about how he doesn't know how well his schedule being super chaotic lately,
right,
and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, are they trying to write Winston out and have Jay take over swag? And as much as I love Winston, me being the Jay Washington fan that I am, I got super giddy for it. So the idea of adding a faction, that's an opportunity for maybe Jay to take over. Maybe Ken comes out of retirement, or you have an out of left field player who decides to start managing. That adds a lot of cool plot line opportunity, and B, just a gameplay opportunities that nobody would expect, putting another faction in the mix.
Yeah, I think if you're going to add factions, then you can't just add 1. You have to add 2 to keep the balance. So you would have to go from 8 to 10. And then if you do that, then and if you're thinking about trimming down roster size as well, that because that affects the overall pool of players in the league. Well, then if you're adding, let's just say, if the roster size were staying at 10, now you're adding 20. Well, if you take away 2 times 8, that's 16. So you take away 16, but then you're adding 20, so it's netting 4. I think, is that the math there? So you're not really removing anything really in terms of the player pool. It's kind of staying the same, but adding two factions trying to, so I don't know that we're going to be adding factions. It's possible, but I don't think at this point, I don't know how realistic that is. You never know. Because you're right. Someone could come out and be like, "Hey, I'd do it," because I think these managers right now who have been doing it for this second season, I think it's a lot of work. We were talking on the rundown with Dan Merrill and Ben Bateman about how much time Kaiser puts in, how much, and then talking with Marisol and Mike Kalinowski, how much time Shannon puts in, and that's just talking from two factions, right? That's not talking about the other six factions and then those managers. I know Roxy puts in a lot of work, right? Winston puts in a lot of work. Coy does. All these managers, they put in a lot of work. And so if someone on the outside goes, this is what it takes, I don't know, maybe. So there's a lot of different things that could go into a manager wanting to become a manager. Is probably more likely a player already really deep in it, I think, is more likely. It would be interesting if, like, Andrew Guy, became a manager. I think he'd be great as a manager, especially given kind of like the storyline that he's on now could lead into potentially a manager spot. And let's say someone steps down and he steps in, or, then they get him, and then let's say, Jay comes back. Maybe you add Andrew and Jay. That would be interesting. But I think if the concern is about the player pool and how many players we have in the league next year, I think you have to look at. I think the league will probably look at how many matches can we produce next year, and how many opportunities does that provide across the board for players and for factions, and make that fair. And then I think perhaps then you're able to make a determination on how many players will be on each faction, because if with 12 and with 12 players on a faction and someone only plays once, it's all right. It's I don't want to say it's a wasted spot, but it's like that sucks for that one person that they didn't get more opportunities because the field is so large and we got to kind of spread it around. But it's also win and keep playing. So I think there's a lot more than just what's the idea. Okay, what would be great? Sure, like 15 players on a faction. Let's have 12 factions, 15 players. Great, but can we realistically do that? Can we produce the amount of matches to make that worthwhile? So I think it'll be interesting to see how many matches we ultimately end up with this year, and then going from that, I think we can better gauge what's a realistic number that makes it fair for that players aren't just sitting around playing one match and then that's it. Because that's tough, I think, for players. You do all this work, you get one match, and then maybe that's it because there's just not enough room in the schedule because there's all these players, all these mouths you're trying to feed.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very complex thing, and I look forward to seeing what happens moving forward. There's been a you can tell that the inner workings of the Schmoedown are very democratized in the way that there were, Christian was like, okay, there's not going to be any faction on faction playing against each other. And then like eventually just kind of got voted down,
like the championship. Yeah. The titles.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. I'm sure the managers themselves are going to have a lot of input on that the nature of, again, how many players are going to be able to populate the area. And you're absolutely right, where there just kind of gets to a point where the roster just kind of cannibalizes itself, and that you can't produce enough matches to make the deeper rosters count.
Right.
But yeah, very interesting stuff. And one last piece of news we're going to get into before we start talking about the matches this week. During the pay-per-view last night, we had the unfortunate news that Mark the Android Andraco is going to be stepping away from the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. From what he said, for the time being, so we can't expect a return from him at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we'll be getting the announcement as to what will be happening next Friday now.
Yeah.
On Monday for patrons, Wednesday for main feed people. Frank, thoughts on this? I know that's that's just such a loaded, tell me what you think about this legend stepping away.
Yeah.
But tell me what you think about this legend stepping away.
It's it sucks to hear, I think as a fan, Andreyko has really, really found his place in the Schmoedown and really found, I think, a home alongside Roxy and Jeff, and going back from Anarchy, it was them, right? And they built something, and they've won the titles, they beat the Shire Wolves, and then then they won it again, after losing it, right? So there's a lot of history there, and Andreyko has a deep history going back to the tail end of 2016, coming into the league with William Bibbiani and that incredible debut match we saw from them. And he's been through some storylines and some incredible matches. I mean, the Blofeld's Cat match and the Nerds Watch match. I mean, that's incredible stuff. His time with the Five Club. His run for the singles belt, which came up just short against Bibbiani. He's had some really incredible moments. Obviously, XX5XX, at the free for all, iconic, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic moment in free for all history. That's him, and just a great person to have involved in the league. You couldn't ask for a better representation for someone to represent the Schmoedown, I should say. So it's a pretty big loss, and for the Schmoedown as a whole, I think. And in terms of the fallout for Odd Couple Shazam, that title match, we're gonna find out on Monday for the for patrons, and Wednesday at large. So it'll be interesting to see how that's all navigated. What the league ultimately decides, is the best course of action for all parties involved. And I know it watching Andreyko's announcement was pretty tough. You could see it was tough on him, that this wasn't something that, it was unfortunate that he had to do it. And I think he wishes he could at least play. I think he wishes he could have at least played that last title match just to see how it went. And then, then step away. Because I think it's a lot tougher to do what he's doing right now, is not even being able to give Jeff that final shot at it to defend it. And I think that weighs on him heavily, because I think he wants to do right by Jeff. He wants to do right by Jeff, and unfortunately, this is really the only way to make it right. And it's unfortunate. And he did say it's should be temporary, but you never know. And he said something to the effect, could be sooner than later. You never know. But hopefully, I mean, he's got some great things going on professionally for him. So, I mean, congratulations on all of that. I absolutely am. So I'm very thrilled for him in that regard. But if he does have like a spare hour, maybe he comes back in an exhibition match and just for fun. I don't know, because I don't want to see him step away for too long. But if he's got to do what he's got to do, and this is how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I would very much like you said, spare hour come. Do a Rocky and Creed style, off the books.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see what happens. No, I agree with you completely. I was very disappointed hearing the news, because last night it was very, very slow. So I was at work, so I was just watching Danger Zone v Rushmore behind the bar, and then watched McKee v Machine. I'm surprised I got through that without getting my tongue tied. I watched those behind the bar, and Andreyko popped up with Grace, and I was like, oh no, I don't like where this is going. I can tell what he's about to say. And was worried, because I thought it would be for bad reasons. And he says, I'm stepping away for a good reason. Like, this is
Right.
It's a good, like, there are good things happening that are leading to me having to step away, which is the saving grace there. You know, it makes me happy to see a good dude like him, get caught up in work and not be able to do it. It's the same reason, Travis and I joke every time there's a Star Wars title match coming up that it's only a matter of time until, someone wins a Star Wars title match and then we just hear the Force Unleashed theme music and Sam Witwer comes jaunting onto the stage again.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to hear that ever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But boy can hope.
I mean, for sure. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. We know it's fool's gold on that one. But yeah, no, it's very disappointing to see Draco go. Very curious as to what happens next week. I know the body isn't quite cold on the Odd Couple quite yet, and feel kind of gross speculating on what that would be,
sure,
and how they would do it. But I am really curious. Like, does it just turn into Shazam versus Corruption? Do they still put the team's tournament winners, in the what would be a number one contender? Show's over. Match against Corruption if Corruption is already kind of the next in line, that they should just throw it to Shazam, like throw Corruption against Shazam and then bring up
this
is a spoiler show, Danger Zone up to play them. I don't envy anybody who has to figure out what the next step is.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tough part about this is, okay, what do we do next? How do we make this fair all around and do what's best for the league, do what's best for, the people that are involved in this particular situation? So, clearly it seems like they've figured it out and they're going to let us know on Monday. And, but obviously this has been in the works for quite a while, having pushed back this title match already once, and then now we get this announcement from Draco, and so it's last night on the show I pointed towards Jeff Snyder's tweet about having to head into the principal's office, right? So I think that's when they got the final determination of like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. And, because it affects Jeff Snyder. So they're going to have to let him know, like, hey, this is how we're going to proceed. And either he's on board with it or he's not. I don't know. I don't know. So so they figured it out. It's just a matter of, we just got to wait till Monday to find out exactly what they're going to do. I'm curious, what do you think they should do?
I'm not sure. Part of me feels like the just kind of letting kind of how it was after Sam Levine had retired, where there was just like a belt just floating in the air. Part of me feels like one of those situations, letting Corruption play Shazam, or maybe you just have Corruption and Danger Zone fight it out, and the winner of that plays Shazam for the belt that's just floating in the air. Maybe that's the best course of action, because that way you still get to validate, this team tournament that just happened. So maybe that's the play. I also feel like, there's kind of like a next in line hierarchy there a little bit, that I feel like Corruption should just be able to just like, okay, well, if we're not waiting for Shazam to play somebody else, put them in and then let Danger Zone take the winner between Shazam and Corruption. I feel like that's the one I'm leaning towards. Just Shazam, let Shazam and Corruption happen.
Yeah.
And then Danger Zone between whomever wins between those two.
Yeah, because we are in an interesting spot because when Sam Levine had to vacate the belts, that left Drew McWeeny beltless,
Yeah.
and he ended up in Anarchy, ultimately teamed up with Brienne, right? So, and then the belts were up for grabs at a particular point where the Shire Wolves were able to go and grab them after Brienne. Well, yeah, Brienne cashed in that shot, and so that match ended up being for the title. There is a title shot out there, much in the way Brienne had hers, and it's in the hands of Paul Oyama. Could we possibly see a kind of a repeat scenario where Shazam is ready for their title shot, and then here comes Paul Oyama to cash it in with Lon Harris as the final exam, and they go up against Shazam for the belts right there. I mean, that would be very similar to what happened for the Shire Wolves and Brienne's team, Sick in the Head there with Brian. Oh, I forget his name, last name, but so is that's a possible scenario? I don't, will it happen? I don't know, but we shall see.
Yeah, it's really confusing stuff, and they're not confusing necessarily, but like there's a lot riding on it, and you got to wrap your brain around what the right move is, and again, that's just a force of nature, just kind of hanging out there in the balance right now as Paulo Yama's title shot of his choosing.
Yeah,
that he could put that in anywhere. Like I keep forgetting that like Paul's also an IG guy.
True.
And could potentially kind of, put his stuff on the table there, and like it could happen anywhere really. And I'm very curious what his next move would be. I am of the opinion that I feel like he might keep that up his sleeve in singles.
Yeah.
That's my impulse. I think it was you guys who after the free-for-all were talking about how it's a little risky playing your silver bullet in teams. That because you have to count on somebody else to not to help you not squander your like title shot of your choosing. And as incredible as Lon is, I know I would feel comfier playing it on myself.
Yeah, and that's certainly something for Paul to really think on, as well as Winston and even Lon, I think, to a certain extent, how how he feels about all that. If Paul does decide to go that route, and does Lon want to accept that? I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, there's just a lot floating in the air in the Schmoedown in terms of who is playing who and for what division. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. With that, this is the first time in a while we've had a lot of like Schmoedown news to cover up top, but we are going to jump into the week's matches, starting with gold leader of the Finstock Exchange going head to head with Marie Wilson of the Suspects in the Star Wars tournament. Continuing to see Star Wars heat up in a very big way, in a very exciting way. My favorite division for obvious reasons. But yeah, Frank, thoughts on this match?
Great match. Great display of knowledge, by both of these players. And, it's Dragon Con versus, kind of this trivia internet guru in Gold Leader. And, he went perfect. And Marie went just a smidge under perfect. And, that was all the difference. And it's getting to the point now in this division, the way it is structured and the parameters of the division in terms of what's covered, these 12 films, you're going to see, I really do believe you're going to see at this level matches determined in the way that Alex Damon DiMolanta, the first one, was determined, the way this match was determined. I think you'll see that perhaps with Ace and Sean Sullivan, as well as what the final of this tournament's going to be. I think a lot of these elite matchups are going to hinge on, did you go to multiple choice? Did you miss one question? Because if you did, then you're probably going to lose. And I think we're going to see that more often than not as we progress throughout this season for the Star Wars division. And I'm not quite sure how I feel about that in terms of what it means for the division, in terms of it's still going to be exciting to watch, but at what point does it get a little like, all right, come on already? Like at what point does it get a little stale of, okay, we have another, this is the 10th perfect match in Star Wars. At what point does going perfect get a little too mundane, where it's just the norm? Should be going perfect the norm? So I look at this matchup as kind of perhaps a harbinger for things to come for all of these players, and I can't imagine the stress level it would place on these players knowing that if they don't go perfect, if they miss more than 2 questions, that's it, that's the game.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and that's something Travis and I have talked a lot about on here, that there's kind of this like really crazy arms race happening in Star Wars now, with like the ability to have a perfect game. And, for a second there at the very beginning of the season and with Cabrera Damon 1, it felt like if you want a belt, you need to pitch a perfect game.
Yeah.
Laura Kelly has her perfect match and she's waiting in the wings for her number 1 contender shot. And then, we have the crazy 51-50 match between Damon and Dimolanta, and then it's immediately followed up by a match where they're both missing questions pretty consistently.
Yeah.
And it's like it's this weird thing where you're like, you don't know whether or not the norm is you have to go perfect to win, or everybody kind of shits the bed all at once on on a couple weird questions.
Right.
Thomas Harper and Gold Leader and Laura Kelly, like they're all kind of this class of like capable of perfect games. Obviously, so too with Damon and Dimolanta. I can't remember if Ace has gone perfect yet or not, but he absolutely could if he hasn't yet.
I think he did against Laura Kelly, I think, right? Because she only missed one.
Yes, I think you're right, because she missed one. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's I don't know, man. I'm very curious as to what happens with Star Wars moving forward, because like everybody has to be kind of prepared to play perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's the only division where, save for playing against, a Kalinowski or a Chandru or a Knopic or an Odd Couple or a Roka or a Merle or whatever, that there's an expectation that like you might need to miss nothing at all levels of play, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get somebody who will give you a question or two in the first round and you might be able to pick off a 1-point steal in round 2. It might be everyone for themselves the entire time, and you need to drain every point that you can to stay alive. And Marie, when she gave her answer, it was kind of like with like last week with Eric Whiteley's hang up with the what planet are Obi-Wan and Anakin said to be on at the beginning of the Clone Wars. We talked last week. Like, I know exactly the line he thought he heard when he answered with Ancion. And not Christophsis. And it was this week again where it's like, I know exactly what line she thought she heard when she said ages instead of 10 years.
Right.
And it was just so heartbreaking, because it's like, I can hear your thought process through the screen.
Right.
And like you, like, and not necessarily in like a challengeable way. It's like, you're not technically wrong. On a certain level, like you're kind of right, not right enough to like challenge it validly,
Right.
Or with any validity rather. But like I get where like the answer she was trying to give, and we're 2 weeks in a row where it's like little things like that decided a match. So yeah, Star Wars is heating up. It makes me very happy to see that it's a viable division now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think an argument can be made that it's, aside from the fact that most of the people in the Schmoedown look at Star Wars as kind of this like really weird division that does not have anywhere near the amount of like other movies that the other three have at their disposal, but is conversely in some ways a lot harder. With the nature of the trivia and the fact that across the board a lot of the other divisions are a little bit more surface level, who directed, who starred, and it's in the Star Wars division you're not going to get who directed this movie because there's a pool of maybe 5 to 7 people who you could possibly have,
right?
And who starred. Well, you have the same cast for blocks of 3 movies, so if you memorize one cast list, you memorize them all.
Right. You're never going to get who portrays Luke Skywalker. You're never going to get that question.
Precisely. If anything, you get who played Baby Luke at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and that'll be a round 1 question.
Is that that's not a round 1 question?
Oh no, I'm being hyperbolic, but
I was like, my lord,
I'm being hyperbolic. No, I'm aware
like,
that is not a.
That's not even a 5-pointer. That's like that's an 80-pointer. Like, if you know the name of the baby, like that's insanity to me. You should be arrested if you know that answer.
You're arrested. I love it. Very, very, very much enjoying the teams tournament as it's shaping up. Taylor Robinson of the Finstock Exchange versus Greg Alba. We had the continuation of what we've been calling Gucci's rookie rampage, with Gold Leader still pulling down another win. However, we finally got to see the exchange bleed again for the first time in a hot minute.
Yeah.
It was a great match. Everybody, it went back and forth a lot. There was, for a hot second there, I thought Taylor Robinson was about to take it back.
Yeah.
But Greg proved victorious in the end.
It was a very scrappy match. Very tight first match. I mean, all the way around, I think. As much fun as they were having there, especially Greg, just having a ball over there, and it seemed like Taylor was really. I don't know how much pressure she felt coming into this match or playing this match, because she wasn't. I think it was obvious she wasn't coming in as loose as Greg was. And I don't know if it's partly because of Taylor just really wanted to prove, that, she was not the same. She's not the same player as she was when she first played that Fatal 5-Way match, a few years ago. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but nonetheless, you look at her numbers and they're a vast improvement from when she debuted in the league, in that match. So, but all that aside, she still put up a hell of a fight in her second round. I forget what was the cat. She ended up. What did she get? Was it the dystopian?
Yes, I think it was, because I know he had. It was either DC or Batman. No, she originally spun Batman.
Yeah, she spun away from Batman.
Yeah,
and then landed on. I think. Was it on opponents? She landed on opponents, right? Or no? Am I misremembering? I don't know. There's a lot of matches that happen, but either way, I just remember her having to.
You have every right to be fuzzy on it.
I just remember her really navigating and checking multiple choice, and I'm pretty sure it's dystopian time travel. And because the first question was a Back to the Future question, and she had who played
Marty's mom, I believe.
It was was the Back to the Future 3 question, and the answer was Leah Thompson, but it wasn't who played Marty's mom. It was what's her name?
Yeah, you're right. It was the quote. It was like your future isn't written in
Maggie
yeah.
McFly, I think. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's anyways. But she had to really navigate. She did a great job navigating that round because it could have went south real quick for her in that regard. But she played it really smart, and but then Greg was able to kind of match that a little bit and more. And for as it wasn't the most accurate match we've seen all year in the division or across the Schmoedown, but it was still entertaining nonetheless because it was a close match all the way throughout, and I think that's something to be considered because I think a lot of people these days will look at if people miss more than like 5 questions, they write it off as kind of like some lame duck type of match, and I think that really does a disservice to the Schmoedown as a whole because the show is much more than just what do you know. It's about kind of the presentation, the entertainment that these players bring. So
100%.
If the trivia is the trivia prowess, if you will, is somewhat lacking, and that's not entertaining for you, hopefully it's made up in other areas where these players are having fun with maybe some of the misses or joking about some of the answers or having a good time there because that really does help out the enjoyment of watching really any match, even if the trivia is high level,
Yeah. To clarify, you were right. Spun Batman, spun away, hits opponents, and is given dystopian future.
Right. Okay.
I was scrubbing through the match on YouTube there. And you were also right about the first question with the Maggie McFly one.
Okay. All right.
I got confused. I know there was also the Back to the Future quote question, which I got excited over because I love.
Oh yeah, that was the first round. The first round question there.
That's right. Yeah. They're all blurring together now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. It was a fun to watch match. Greg Alba has that kind of like, I would describe his style as play as like the Schmoedown equivalent to like drunken master martial arts.
Yeah.
Right. Where like the whole like, he kind of looks a little oafish and goofy, but he is packing heat as far as his knowledge base goes. True. Like I think if he's able to kind of like bring his focus in a little bit, in the moment and doesn't. And, I think he doesn't quite have that skill that a lot of seasoned players have where like they will hear a question and go, oh shit, I do not know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But like take a breath, maybe drop a JTE and just think for a second and pull it. Like we saw him do it with like the Teen Titans Go to the Movies one answer. Where like he was like, well, I know this isn't in Lego Batman. And there's only one other place this could go. So, smoke him if you got him. Here we go. Good luck. Let's see what happens here. And he was right with the my superhero movie thing. I think if he's able to again just kind of breathe and kind of just let the game happen around him and focus through, I think he could definitely be a very high tier player. And I think the same of Robinson as well. I think that this was the first instance of Gucci not quite bringing it as a manager so far this season. Like he's been good this season so far. And I don't know. I feel like Robinson felt okay with Batman. I think she did not like dread doing Batman. Like it's a broad category.
Yeah.
Because in the time we've spent talking about his turn, like how many other Batman movies, like Lego Batman, he shows up in Teen Titans Go to the Movies too. So like those are 2 Batman movies like you could potentially throw in there as like appearances of the Batman. So I don't know. I feel and like Gucci's face when she hit opponent's choice was he was just like, okay, that was oops.
Yep. Yeah.
Did an oopsie.
I don't begrudge anyone, if you spin again, you hit opponents. Like, what can you do? Like, it's some random algorithm on a digital wheel. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. It just is what it is. You can't predict it. You can't explain it, to quote Bill Paxton from Twister. You can't. So when that happens,
Excellent reference.
Can't explain it. You can't predict it. I love that movie. I should watch that movie today, actually. I will actually watch that movie today. Anyways, so tough break because look, if she doesn't land on opponent's choice and she lands on something else and then she crushes it, well, then we're all saying, well, good job, Gucci. Good job, Taylor. But because it went to opponents and because Coy and Greg decided on dystopian time travel and all that, it looks a lot worse. So, yeah, it's hindsight's 2020. Should never spun away from Batman. Yeah, maybe. But we ultimately don't know how she would have done in Batman either. So
there's no way of truly knowing.
Yeah, you can certainly be somewhat critical of it, but I think to the extent that I've seen in a couple places out there, I don't think it's completely warranted. But because there's plenty of times players stay in a category where they feel pretty confident and they just do average or they bomb it. So.
Bateman last week with movie release dates in the teams match. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and I don't want to, shit talk Gucci or anything like that because he's been doing an incredible job as a manager this season. I've always said his strongest suit is knowing what to say to people and knowing what people he needs in a room to do their thing.
Yeah,
and to make like a Dungeons and Dragons joke here, like that we're gonna spin again was rolling a 1, where like everything somehow backfires in the most unbelievably horrible way you can imagine.
Yeah,
like I don't. And then like that's always the anxiety whenever someone's like this is kind of like the third best category for me on the wheel, but also opponent's choice is just kind of, lurking in the grass, trying to wait for somebody to mess around with it. So how often does that, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
And you don't land on opponent's choice. You dodge the bullet, you get something that's okay for you. He and Robinson rolled a 1. It was just one of those like it's the odds of it happening in that order of we can find something better. Oh no, we've goofed. So yeah, I hope to see more of them in the future. And eventually there's going to be an IG tournament on the horizon. If the way the tournaments have been happening, the pattern of we're going to do like less experienced and rookie players in tournament number 1 keeps up. I hope to see both Greg and Taylor in a tournament built like that. Jumping into the teams finals, I thoroughly ate crow. I did not think Danger Zone had the chemistry or the synergy to beat Rushmore. I really didn't. Based off of last week, it felt like they were kind of talking over each other at certain points. They were not as, sharing a brain through the screen as JTE and Roka were. I didn't think they could do it here. I really, really did not think Danger Zone was going to pull this off.
Oh.
And then there's nothing again. It's like Dan Murrell, is a legend. Ben Bateman is one of my favorite like non-corruption players. I didn't think they could do it. I really didn't. I didn't think they had the team chemistry, and by the end of round one, I was cheering for Danger Zone. Like I was like, holy shit, you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
Like they just came through, and it was that, like, I don't know. They did exactly what I thought they needed to do to beat Rushmore. And I was watching them. I'm like, they don't have that synergy that Rushmore has, and it was just from question one. Just you could feel that they had it in that moment.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, somebody else could say that they absolutely thought they had that synergy, and I'm an idiot for not seeing it. But I didn't. I didn't at first. And in those last two matches, it was like, they were kind of punching below their weight class with the outsiders or outcasts, which I can't remember the name of the Den's.
Outsiders, yeah.
Outsiders, okay. I thought I was right. They were kind of punching below their weight class. And I'm not going to directly say that, like, Danger Zone only won because of luck against Deception. Like, they fought their way through that match. They had to do what they had to do. But you cannot deny that they dodged a bullet.
I think they'd certainly escaped by the skin of their teeth. I think, Deception had them dead to rights going into their 5-pointer, no doubt about it. They if Deception hits their 5, obviously, right, they win. So Deception absolutely had every chance to win that match, and they didn't. That doesn't mean, to me, and Dan has spoken on this a couple times now recently, that doesn't mean that that Danger Zone was lucky.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that, and I don't want to. I don't want to take away from Dan and Ben's performance at all. I really don't, and I don't want to be someone who's, boo-hooing at them. Especially because, like, I want to pretend to be unbiased. Like, the T-shirt doesn't help. It's not a secret who I was pulling for last week against all odds.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, like they got that win very narrowly.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I will say, I was let me see what I'm going to say here. I will say I was talking to someone recently about Deception, and they really do believe that, like, Deception is probably, with kind of Odd Couple status up in the air, they really feel that, like, Deception is probably like the third best team right now. In the division, and they could very well be the best team in the division. And there are great teams that will lose a couple matches. I mean, you look at Shazam, right? I mean, they play excellently. They've lost a couple, right? So, Shirewolves, they ended up losing a couple. Corruption, they've lost a couple. So they're all going to lose at some point. It's just, when does it happen and against who? And then kind of look at the resume after that. But what I will say also, in terms of Danger Zone and this Deception match, it was just an extremely hard-fought match, an extremely skilled played match from Danger Zone. I mean, there's a lot of experience there. There's a lot of strategy involved in what they were deciding to do. And navigating that multiple choice, or the movie release dates, and then following that into this Rushmore match when they get martial arts. They kind of follow the same formula. So now I think opposing teams should look at, we may give them something that's pretty tough. Like, Rushmore can joke about all they want about how they'd give them martial arts all day long, but they're not going to have that. I don't think they're too good of players to repeat that exact performance at that level. I think it'll be higher next time. It won't be lower, I don't think. It won't be lower. And if they're going to pitch double perfect rounds and then have that second round performance, and you are still in a very bad spot if you're going up against them, because they're that good. And Dan Murrell, he's on a 4-game streak of perfect rounds in the first round, so including the bonus. So teams will be in a tough spot when they go up against Danger Zone. Yeah.
I agree completely. And then that's my biggest thing is that, like, I like, in an attempt to explain why I was not so much betting against Danger Zone, but more betting on Rushmore, if that makes sense. That performance wise, I didn't feel like they were ready to take on Rushmore. Just on that teamwork element, and I completely wrong. Like I said, like, I am eating crow. Last week I said what I said, and I was damn wrong about it, and it was very impressive, their win here. Just it was remarkable, and very excited to see Rushmore come back through again. Bateman, Merle, Roca, they're three of my favorites. I also love JTE as well. So I can't wait to see. I want to see a rematch between these guys very badly.
I think it'll eventually. I mean, I don't know if it will happen, but if it does, man, I'll be super hyped for this rematch.
As will I. But yeah, with that, the dungeon picked up 4 points for their faction because of this. And like we said at the top of the show, we have no idea what comes next now that we have the newly and hopefully temporarily defunct Odd Couple. That
Can you give me 1 quick second? Just
yes.
Never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So yeah, incredible match. Like you said, you called attention to the martial art, like the way they navigated martial arts. And again, it was just, you could feel them feeding off of each other's energy. And it was in that moment where it was like, just the way they were talking to each other through martial arts. I was like, they won. They're going to win. There's no getting around what they're about to do.
I think if someone out there hasn't watched it yet, we interviewed on the rundown Ben and Dan, and they really go into how they work together and how they work through things and train together. And I think some potential misconceptions about how they would work together or how they mesh, I think will be alleviated there. If you go ahead and listen to that interview we did with them, really great stuff from both of those guys, and shed a lot of light on where their mind's at and how they work and their philosophies and things of that nature. It's really insightful and great stuff from them. So if you have these interesting suspicions or worries or concerns about how they might operate as a team, I highly recommend to go listen to that and then reevaluate how you look at them as a team, because actually listening to them after that, I'm more convinced than ever that they are a huge force to be reckoned with. I mean, they already were just on paper, right?
Yeah.
But when two elite players like that can figure out fairly quickly and seems like fairly seamlessly how to work together to maximize each other's potential and their capabilities, they are a very, very scary team. And they're not the only team like that, but they have so much experience and history behind them. It kind of gives them a little bit more of an edge, in my opinion, to a team, let's say, like Deception, or even Rushmore, for that matter. Danger Zone, there's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of hype, I think, now really building, more so than ever, and we'll see how they navigate it going into that corruption match.
I agree. I'm very much looking forward to it. And just as a fan of the game, very much looking forward to it. And as a fan of corruption, admittedly, a little nervous now. Yeah. And again, I it was cool because I actually got to listen to that episode of the rundown right before watching the match.
Yeah.
So like I kind of got to go in like knowing the inner workings of Danger Zone, and then watching them play, and I was like, okay, like I see it now. And I don't know if maybe listening to their interview primed me to like recognize it, or if maybe they were just a little bit more on than before. But Absolutely blown away by them in this finals match. Jumping into the pay-per-view from last night, we have Marisol McKee going head-to-head with Jeanine The Machine in what is easily one of the most impressive matches I've seen that is confined to 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And what is easily the best performance of both Marisol McKee and Jeanine The Machine that we've seen up to this point. I can't stress enough the poetry of the story that Jeanine told in her interview.
Right.
Like the conversation with Marisol and like her joke. She's like, I brought this on myself. Like I told her chase her dreams and it brought it back to me. So
yeah.
I can't blame nobody but me for this one. Which, was really sweet and really cute. And part of why I think Jeanine is so loved that, in the face of, it's weird because there's certain types of losses that just hurt more. There's you get absolutely curb stomped and you're embarrassed by it.
Right.
All the way up to it's one miss that that ends the fight. And we Travis and I have said on here 1,000 times before that Jeanine The Machine is absolutely champion material, and that she is probably one of the best players with the worst luck in this game, and that she's just kind of had like tough runs.
Yeah.
Like this is the one that Travis and I bring up all the time whenever she was playing KO like a year or two ago when he spun Bond, and like he was like, he's like, I didn't want this. It's like, I didn't want to play you on Bond. This is bullshit. She can still win.
I mean, I honestly, I think going back to that match real quick, I think if he doesn't spin Bond, I think she probably wins. But
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong, and I'm a KO stan around these parts, and I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
But no, Jeanine did a phenomenal job. Again, like I'm a big corruption guy. I was sweating that entire match.
Big sweat.
I was, I was nervous, and Marisol is no bullshit either.
Yeah.
She's a straight up, murderer, and I was nervous, man. It was a nail biter, and it's again, sometimes it's just that one question loss by one question that hurts harder than I missed one or two here, and mathematically I'm not going to be able to pull it off. I feel like that is the one that stings the least in the grand scheme of things, but when it's just by one question and it's just that one little bit of a miss that leaves you open.
It's when it's especially when it's everyone's gone perfect to that point, and now it's the last question. That sucks. Yeah, that's where it hurts a lot.
Yeah, and again, like there's something to be said for Shannon's management. That like that match goes a different way without that time of my life challenge.
I mean, that was an interesting point, and Marisol was obviously, I think, was going to jump on it. It's just as much as Shannon was, and I think that whole situation was handled pretty well and fairly. When I had to look up the song title, I was like, all right, well, it's in the parentheses. You know what? Yeah, I think you got to give it to her. So, and I didn't have a problem with the ruling. And I thought actually the explanation from Ellis as well really hammered home. This is fair. So I think everyone was cool with it.
Yeah, everybody kind of colloquially has agreed that the song is just called "Time of My Life."
Yeah,
And I thought that was valid. And at first I was like, I want corruption to win every like single, sliver of a point that they can. But
Yeah.
I don't know about it. But like when they kind of explained it, especially like, again, like the parenthetical title nonsense, I was like, okay, yeah. And they won me over with that. And yeah, I don't, without, Marisol being as good at the gameplay and cognizant of the gameplay, and Shannon being just Johnny on the spot to pull the trigger on that challenge, it ends very differently, and and again, I think it's another example of circumstantial stuff that happens with Jeanine that lends itself to a victory not being pulled through.
Yeah, where she just can't catch a break in a sense.
Yeah. And again, like the day she's in a pitched battle where there's no like outside force that somehow in some weird way kind of blows something astray, I will make the prediction right now that her next game is a perfect match, like straight up and down perfect.
I mean, I think it'd be pretty close, yeah. But it's tough to replicate those performances time in and time out in this game. But yeah, I mean, I think we've all known that like the ability has been there. We've just never seen it happen, and it finally did. And for Jeanine, it comes up just short. But for Marisol, it ended up in a victory. So, both just amazing stuff, and I can't wait to see their next matches. Yeah.
In particular, Marisol McKee versus Kevin Smith.
Yeah, that one in particular for sure is going to be, gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, because like, at least for me, there's something very funny about Marisol McKee, this rookie who has this unbelievable well of knowledge, who's also a good tactician, who's good at, knowing when to deploy a JTE, knowing when to challenge, being good with strategy in the game, going head to head with Kevin Smith, who doesn't even know if he gets multiple choice in round 3 or not. Right. But he has the knowledge pool that like, it doesn't matter if he doesn't know, he can get away with it, because he's Kevin Smith, he knows his shit. So I think that disparity is going to make for a very entertaining match. Especially because Kevin can't stop making jokes throughout the entirety of a match. And, we have Marisol coming in blindfolded doing the Lady Justice bit. I'm very excited for it to be a straight man, funny man type match where it's going to be very entertaining, and I cannot wait for the collision.
Yeah. It's gonna be great for sure.
Moving on to our last match of the week. I enjoyed this one.
I'm sure you did.
We had Knopic v. Kalinowski 3. Phenomenal match. I really, again, I get really excited when I get to see corruption end up in places that are scary as shit for a minute. And this, again, I was sweating for a lot of this. And, one of the reasons why I like KO as a player as much as I do was the Pine Heads and him going, nope, no, no, we're not going to challenge this. This is a proper tete-a-tete. I don't want there to be any type of speculation that I won because of a challenge that, and then following that up with for a player who I don't have this kind of respect for, completely expect Pineheads to get challenged.
Yeah.
Again, there's just that, this is an honorable duel with Mara Knopic, but for anybody else, or Mara Knopic or Smets, or, she's not playing anymore, obviously, but like Cushing's, like, this is an honorable duel between two masters, and for anybody else, it's I will break your fucking kneecaps on a whim. But yeah, no, they both did incredible. I just started cheering when he spun DC, and I was like, all right, we got this. This is over. We got it. We're coming through. It was a rough DC, and again, that was we were talking about last week with Bateman and movie release dates. So sometimes it's just a category that you're good at, but you kind of end up in that rough patch of questions that and I think it's interesting that for a lot of people, the people's strongest categories, when they struggle in them, it's always a rough patch.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how and obviously, I don't know how the questions are curated from match to match, but I think it's interesting that, it wasn't Bateman hit movie release dates and there was like one or two that were like rough. It was all of them were like, fan yourself or starting to sweat a little bit. Same here with DC with KO. He, it wasn't just there was one really hard one. It was ones that he just struggled with across the board, as opposed to him, just being in and out of DC in 30 seconds, which is what you would expect.
I think with
also,
I'm sorry.
No, what were you saying?
With the DC though category coming into this year, you have to remember that we've combined DCEU and DC slices, so it's not just like DCEU, which he's like killer at because it's like 7 or 8 movies, something like that. So where it's very narrow and you can kind of really hone in on that stuff. Where it's DC, it's previously in that old slice, everything outside of DCEU, right? So a lot more movies there. But now that it's combined, you don't know if you're going to get a DCEU question in there, which is where he really thrives. He's still very proficient at DC, but it's more of a crapshoot these days. And the questions, are a little bit more finessed, I guess you could say, in terms of the wording and what they're looking for these days. And that's just due to the nature of trying to help expand the division. And we talked to Kalinowski last night about it. He's like, it's not a sure thing anymore with DC. I'm pretty good at it, but it's not as sure of a thing anymore as it once was, just because of what they decided to do with these categories. So it's the league, the division is adjusting, and then the players will react accordingly, and then I think we'll rinse and repeat. Probably. Yeah,
100%. And I know. That said, I didn't get a chance to listen to the post game that you and Brad did yet, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
It was actually PLD guys did. Brad could.
PLD, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm very much looking forward to it. That's awesome. You love little change ups and who's doing what. I was really impressed by Mara with Transformers.
Yeah.
Like I again, and maybe it's me who didn't hella grow up on Transformers, like the Transformers, the movie type stuff. And, treated going to see any of the Transformers movies as, this ought to be funny. And didn't retain anything from it. Transformers kind of seemed like that, we're going to avoid this at all costs category, because nobody wants to necessarily revisit it. And like off the top of your head, I feel like in a, you have to triage what studying you can do. You have to like you got to really make some hard decisions, especially now in the IG. What movies you're going to try to double down on and trying to get really familiar with. And I would not be surprised if a lot of people having to make a call go, I'll get to Transformers.
That would be an interesting take because, in my opinion, I think that Transformers is relative to all the other slices. I think it's a pretty manageable slice, given how many movies was there? 7 movies in that, I think.
That sounds right. And there's like
Three,
4, 5, or 6.
right? So it's
No, counting Bumblebee, I think it's 7 or 8. Yeah, you
yeah,
would be
yeah,
right.
right around there, yeah. So I think it's definitely a manageable slice. Sure, you may not like or be thrilled with the material you're covering, but as a slice, very manageable. I think if that player,
That's
if the
true.
player wants to do it. So, does it surprise me that Mario was so proficient with Transformers? Yes and no. Just because I think it's definitely manageable, but like she still killed it. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's not. That's not. If you're not like inherently a fan of that stuff, it's not particularly. I think easy to like really sit down and be like, I'm going to master this slice. But I think, yeah, it's like I said, I wasn't completely surprised, but like still a great performance. And this is what the division is going to be now. Is just more and more of these different types of slices that we're not accustomed to seeing, and then players coming in and then knocking them out of the park because they're putting in the time.
Yeah. And I remember like it's so weird. And part of me feels like there was an obvious choice to expand the IG because that helps with the amount of Star Wars questions you're burning through. Like between 2 IG matches this week, obviously one of them being a championship match, I heard 1 Star Wars question, and it was a release date for the Clone Wars in the speed round.
Yeah.
Like I there's just it's interesting to me seeing these like what you initially think of as the core IG, which is expanded obviously, that like there's not as much Trek, there's not as much Star Wars, there's not as much Middle Earth. Was there even like a single Wizarding World question asked?
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, because I can't
don't
even
know.
think of
Yeah.
one. Like there's just it's just so diverse that like it's coming from so many different categories now, and it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I just again such an impressive match. Mara got a gnarly 5-pointer.
Yeah, and I think her 5-pointer, and I think the frustrating part about that one is that it is such a gettable 5-pointer.
Yeah.
It's not one of those. It's not something that's hidden somewhere in some book or a frame of a movie. It's literally, how deep down the cast list did you go down? How far into the credits did you read? That type of thing. And when I think you get to the point or of realization where you're like, I'm running through like the first whatever amount of people on the cast list, and I didn't go deep enough, to know that it was Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
That's got to be just absolutely, aggravating and disappointing. And I know I see people out there, talking about, oh, she should have thrown out something, a name, just get because you never know, 1 in a million. But if in her mind, and I don't know this to be true or not, but if in her mind she's running through the cast list and is able to name actor and character, and she's going down the list and she gets to Odin and she's like, I don't have an actor for Odin. I have an actor for all these other characters, but I don't know Odin. What am I gonna say? Jamie Kennedy for the hell of it? Because I'm supposed to please everybody's requirement of just say something. Like, no, like if you really get to that point where you're like, I literally do not know, then I don't think it should be so much of a point of like. And I saw it in the chat. I was seeing it in some other places of just say anything. Like if she literally went through what she knew from that cast list, and was able to 100% verify within her mind, these actors go with these characters. I don't have one for Odin. Congratulations, Mike. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all. And again, it was completely in honor. It was a very honorable thing,
Yeah.
where it was like, I can't think of anything. And I understand the say something mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But like in your 5-pointer, when you really truly don't know it,
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a moot point. Like in round 1, if you can't think of it, but like something tangentially adjacent, throw it, go for it. Even
Right.
in round 2. And if you're in a championship match, like again, it's not like you get that kind of leeway in the betting round, which is also a big factor in KO's win here. That he absolutely went for it, and she, kind of played defensively. But speed round, that if you got to follow your gut, and they both had a perfect speed round. It was very impressive. But I don't understand. I agree with you. I don't understand like demanding somebody just give an answer when they don't know it.
Right.
Like I think there's something really respectable about saying like,
100%.
I don't got it. Good job. Like, she got cornered with a question she didn't know. I have more respect for somebody who can say at the end of the match, I don't know here.
Right.
Than somebody who's just going to go, I don't know, Martin Short or, whatever. Just throw something out there.
Right. Because then, like, here's the thing. Then the thing is like, oh, what a terrible guess. Like, that was way off. Like, oh my God, she had no idea. So it's like.
Precisely.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you completely. It was a phenomenal match. Yeah, I very, very impressed by all parties. And after these past couple weeks of big matches for Corruption, not knowing what's going to be happening next week, at least at time of record, with the collision on the horizon, if this pattern of play continues, I think Corruption has a very good chance to, and again, we're barely halfway through the season. And I'm not as much as I'm going to, in good humor, and ribbing at Travis mostly because he's a dungeon head, talk shit to him. I am not going to very loudly or proudly declare that Corruption is going to win the season again quite yet. I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to mean it because, anything can happen. But I think they have a chance to usurp the exchange and maybe even the dungeon before the collision.
It'll be interesting. I mean, certainly if Corruption beats Danger Zone, then it's a whole new ball game, I think. And then, Corruption will then have a title shot. So
yeah.
And then it's really interesting there because you got to look at, well, Bateman's got to play Roka, and he's on a singles path. Morel's going to have to defend. So the dungeon will have their opportunities to keep their lead. They have certainly their opportunities, and Corruption will have opportunities to shrink it. The exchange, losing to Danger Zone, huge blow for the rocket ship that they were on, because they need to be winning these high-profile matches, the number one contender matches, these 4-pointers, these 7-point matches, championship matches. They need them when they can get to them, because they have so many rookies. Their roads are long to get there. It will build them points, but you look at how Dungeon has 40 points, right? I think the Exchange has 26, and Corruption and the Mercs have 22. Might be a little bit off on those, but Dungeon has 40 points, and the next closest 26. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, and a couple title matches can make up the difference right there. But Merle has a shot, Bateman, he's on a path. Then once we get into this InnerGeekdom tournament, whether it's Mara or Robert Parker, I mean, they're going to be favored heavily to probably get to at least the semifinal, depending who's on the side of their bracket, if not win the whole thing, right?
That's another big thing is what
because then it becomes dungeon corruption for that InnerGeekdom tournament, like immediately. Like if it's Chance and maybe somebody else, maybe Adam Collins, I doubt it, but and then it's also depending on how big that tournament is. I think it's only, I don't know how, I think it's like another 8-player tournament. So if it's just Chance and then you have, whether it's Mara or Robert Parker on the other side, I mean, it's going to, and then you throw in the exchange there, is Barbarian, does Mark Haas even enter for them? So now you have one of those, two of those top 3 are going to be on the same side. And that's where it gets interesting in terms of who's going to be able to cut off who before they get to the final. And who's ever on the opposite side of that too will be in a better position, but because they don't have to worry about the other side. So those other 2 factions. So that seeding will be interesting. Not to mention, what the exchange has going right now in the Star Wars tournament with Gold Leader. So if he wins that tournament, right, that starts to make things real close. So the exchange has like kind of this front on Star Wars tournament right now, corruption with and Danger Zone, in the Summer Contender match for titles, and then Merle has a title match. The InnerGeekdom tournament. I mean, there's a lot percolating right now between those top 3. And, I'd say watch out for the Mercs, because if Shazam ends up winning the titles, or however that happens, and DiMolanta again retains, they're going to be in the thick of it. They're going to be in the thick of it. So now it's a 4-headed race at that point.
You're absolutely right. And the Mercs are they have the potential to kind of sneak up on somebody and ruin their day.
Oh yeah,
because like you said, like they're already holding on to the Star Wars title, and Shazam it's not unlikely for Shazam to have the team's belt. So like that's half of all the gold hoarded over with Koi.
Dungeon used to have half. Now one, now one of it's gone over to corruption. One sitting currently with the Stars and one sitting with the Mercs. So, and the other thing we didn't mention actually is if Kevin Smith does beat Marisol, that's 4 points, and now he's in a title match. And so, and then what if heads explode and then Kevin Smith wins the title? And then it's like all of a sudden the Mercs are at the top, and you're like, what in the world is going on?
It'd be funny as hell.
Yeah,
it'd be funny as hell for Kevin Smith to be belted.
Well, I mean, that's a plot twist of all plot twists. I mean,
it'll certainly save Jay Washington's job if that's how that shakes
right.
out.
That's right.
Because my boy is not looking good right now.
It ain't looking good.
Poor guy. That's what happens when you side with the lady who betrayed corruption, but that's neither here nor there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thomas Harper and Gold Leader, are they on the same side of the bracket, or are they kind of just hurtling towards each other in Star Wars?
They're on opposite sides right now, yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So
Gold Leader Zach Burkett on the left side, that's happening, and then Thomas Harper is awaiting Ace and Sean Sullivan.
That is correct. I was not sure. I thought that's what was up, but I wasn't 100% positive. Well, with that, we are going to give our predictions for the coming week. So, Frank, Ace Cabrera v. Sean Sullivan. Who you got?
I love Sean. Good dude. But I'm going to take Ace. Tournament winner last year. I think he's got a lot to prove. I know Sean Sullivan has a lot to prove, but I think everything that went down in the offseason and the way other Star Wars players have been talked about before Ace, you know, I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think he wants to prove it. And unfortunately for Sean Sullivan, he's going to be, the sacrificial lamb for Ace. I think it'll be a great match, but yeah, I'm gonna take Ace in a squeaker. Yeah.
I this is one of the matches that happen a lot for me where I'm like, here's who I think is going to win, but here's who I want to win.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want Sean Sullivan to pick up some points for corruption and move corruption back towards the having a Star Wars belt. But I do think, if I'm putting money on this in Vegas, I'm going with Cabrera. He's a little bit more of a consistent commodity, and we've seen him beat the current champion.
Yeah.
And I try to avoid like A beats B, but C beats B like type logic.
Sure.
I try to avoid that because again, there's any number of different factors that can determine these matches. But I feel like Ace has him beat here.
Yeah, I think also one last thing. I think last year Ace was just getting back into it,
Yeah.
And he was just really getting into it. And now he's coming into this season having gone through what he did last year, and he's not stepping fresh into the Schmoedown this year. He's coming in with some real, wins under his belt and some prestige, whether it's recognized or not across the fandom or the league or what have you.
Yeah.
He's not coming into this after a drubbing by Robert Parker and InnerGeekdom. He's coming into this as the 2020 Star Wars tournament winner. So this, I think, like I said, I think Ace just has a lot to prove to people, and I think he will probably be more fired up than he's ever been, I think. Yeah.
I could not agree more on that front. We got Jacob Wittenben of the Suspects versus Mark Haas of the Finstock Exchange. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Mark Haas. I don't really know a whole lot about these two players, but I have heard things about Haas more than I've heard anything about Wittenben, and I think Haas is I think it seems to me that from what I've been able to gather, that he's more of a complete trivia movie cinephile, if you will, where he's not just locked into the geekier movies or Star Wars movies, what have you. He's locked into all of it, and I think that bodes well if he's coming into honing in on InnerGeekdom. I think if that's where he wanted to make his lane, great. And he's got Barbarian over there and a plethora of other players who are well versed in all those other different types of, even like JTE as well. There's a lot of movies in InnerGeekdom that I think kind of skew towards his likes as well as Roka's. So I think they got a good group over there, and I think I don't know if this was out there publicly, Mark Haas's audition tape, but when we were going through them, I was one of the ones that was able to go through those, and I saw his. Pretty impressive, and it did impress me a lot. So, but this character Jacob Wittenben, I mean, they're characters over there, so that'll be fun to watch along with the exchange. But I'm gonna go Haas, yeah.
I am too. I am still firmly in the camp of Gucci's rookies are forces of freaking nature, and gonna bring it back to Star Wars here for a second. Raw, untamed power.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess that makes Gucci Snoke, and they have a similar wardrobe, so it makes sense.
True, that is very true. Oh my gosh. Oh, Brian Warwick, can we have that?
I was just about to say we need Supreme
Gucci's
Leader
head on
Finstock.
Snoke. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Supreme Leader Finstock. Holy crap. That would be great.
Now I also just want Tom to do like a line reading
of Snoke,
like in just the most like Gucci mode.
Oh,
it's just like spit your spirit to the bone. Girl never held a lightsaber. You failed. done now. We we have the Quirky Mercs. Josh Horowitz going up against Paul Hauser of The Usual Suspects.
I really liked what we saw out of Horowitz when he played with Press Room. I'm gonna go Horowitz. I think Paul Walter Hauser is gonna be great, but and he could be another Horowitz type of player coming into this thing. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. I have nothing to base that off of, just aside from my gut feeling. I think he'd be great for the league, fun for the league. But I like Horowitz's chances in this one for sure. But especially because he's already played once already. Before,
Yeah.
You know?
He's not quite as much. He's a singles rookie, but he's not a rookie of the game as a whole.
Right.
I'm inclined to agree with you on Horowitz's part. And then we don't know what the hell's happening at the end of the week next week. So, I mean, at least I don't know. You probably have an idea as to what's happening. I have no clue. But
all I know is, what I'll tell you is, well, I mean, we are going to get the Danger Zone corruption.
Okay.
And then the other part you'll have to find out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. We get a little bit of sizzle.
Yeah.
Number one contender exclusive. A little bit of sizzle.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind,
what's the date on that? The
28th. Yes, to the 28th.
Okay, because all right. Okay, yeah.
Well, with that in mind, since we do have we have some specific there. Corruption Danger Zone. Who you got?
I have to go with Danger Zone. I after just watching them play, and and we talked to Mike last night on the rundown a little bit about this. I mean, they're gonna give him a help. That's gonna be a hell of a match. And that's a cat. Hey, Teddy, how you doing?
This is such a precious little kitty.
That's all right. Sorry about that.
No. Anything in the Nerd Academy banner is very cat friendly. We love.
Okay, great.
we love when cats show up, and any pets, but cats especially.
Danger Zone corruption. Okay, so yeah, I do have Danger Zone. I do. I just think they've really figured out how to play the game together and how to play it really well. And I think collectively, Dan and Ben know more than Chance and Mike collectively. I don't think it's by a whole lot, but I think it's just enough to deliver them the win. And you know what? Also, Mike's been kind of inundated with InnerGeekdom, getting ready for that title match. So could that potentially play a part? Maybe. But if they land an InnerGeekdom slice in round 2, InnerGeekdom, they're gonna be. It's gonna be a tough match. I know that.
Yeah, no, and I do think that's very true what you're saying there. That there was the similar thing with Damon going into his title shot, where it's like he's just prepare for the IG match against KO, and he also has to get ready for May the 4th. So he's doing his canon timeline thing for Star Wars Explains YouTube channel. And then he also has to do all the Bad Batch coverage. And then he has to play De Milanta. So you have those outside factors. Same thing here with KO now, where you're absolutely right. He has to get through the IG stuff. Aside from blind fanatical loyalty to Queen Shannon and corruption, I will say KO came out swinging a little harder than he normally does this season in the IG, and I'm kind of expecting that same level of, out of the gate, straight for the jugular type shit from both him and Chance as a unit. Because I feel like they know to have them locked and loaded and ready to absolutely go hard in the paint. And I'm hoping to see them pull off this win. I think that corruption you know, it doesn't, as a faction and as a team, generally don't get talked about in the company that they deserve to be kind of considered with. Consistently you see members of corruption losing the fan polls and then proving them wrong. And that's just the thing that consistently happens. And I think having them beat Danger Zone you would hope would be the moment that everybody goes, okay, they've been showing off for 3 years now that they are in the upper echelon. Let's give that to them. But yeah, I'm pulling for and putting my money on corruption next week.
Yeah, it's gonna
that's
be
the matchup.
It's gonna be a tight one. It's gonna be a tight one for sure, I think. But I think we can point towards that first round. If Mike is on in the first round, because he's had a couple down first rounds in teams, but there was a stretch where he was just killing it. And if he finds that form, we could be in for an all-timer with that match. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, I think that is all we have for you guys this week. Frank, I feel like anybody listening to this show absolutely knows where they can find you. But for the sake of consistency, where can the lovely people find you and all that you do?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29. And, of course, Schmoedown Rundown every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Schmoedown Entertainment Network YouTube channel. And you can listen to it on the Movie Trivia Schmoedown podcast feed, along with all the matches and backstages on that feed as well. So that's all the stuff going on there. Oh, also check out the Schmoedown Extras channel. A lot of those storylines clips get put up there, so if you want to go revisit those really easily and quickly, you can go ahead and get caught up on those storylines. There's playlists for all of those as well, so if you just want to watch the swag selection, as you called it, there's a playlist for that. Grace's corporate takeover type of playlist, there's one for that. Andrew Guy and the Schmoedown, there's a playlist for that one, so you can kind of
Oh my God, I completely forgot to talk about the fact that Andrew Guy's the Winter Soldier now.
Yeah.
I completely forgot to bring that up.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there it is. Yeah. There, he's the Winter Soldier, and we'll see what comes of that. Yeah.
Very excited. That's becoming one of my favorite plot lines very, very, very quickly. Thank you, Frank, very much for coming on. Honored to have you on. Having lots of fun, having more and more Schmo people on Number One Contender. You guys can find myself on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, and you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon page. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Case and Breon, the Waffle Wizard, Delta 9, and Zach Knaus. You guys help us make the content that we love to produce. Make sure to consider the $5 tier, where you get access to our Patreon exclusive shows, the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series, which Spencer and I are going to be recording very soon now that he's back in town. Speaking of Sam Witwer earlier, this month is going to be Jade versus Galen Merrick. Very excited to do that one. Travis and I are getting back into the swing of things with Heroic History 101. We're going to be covering 3 Jokers for that one, and you can get the Nerd Academy Movie Club audio commentary tie-ins on the $5 tier as well. Cannot recommend the audio commentary for A New Hope enough. Doing Star Wars month. Devin hadn't seen A New Hope in years. Forgot about Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru getting roasted extra crispy, and the noise he made when he saw their bodies, I've thought about every day for the past week and laugh every time.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Listen, hearing Devin see the bodies is worth $5 alone. Like that. End of discussion is the funniest thing that has happened on the movie club commentary so far. Short of us ending up with an accidentally censored version of The Room, but that's beside the point. Be sure to click on the student store link on our website to check out our TeePublic, where you can get access to all manner of Nerd Academy merch and goodies. Thank you all so very much for listening. Thank you again to Frank. It's been an honor getting to talk Schmoedown with you. That is all we have for you guys this week, and smash cancer.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!